it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you my next guest. It's Sander van Noordende. Please welcome CEO of Randstad. Oh, I love it. We've got a fantastic audience, Sander. We're very lucky.
You're all excited, like we are.
Like we are,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Sander, thank you so much for joining me here for Equity and Opportunity. I'd like to start by asking you about your experience of actually coming out to your colleagues. You're one of the very few openly gay CEOs of the Fortune 500, and I believe that you actually wanted to share this with them. Can you say why and the timing of it, Sander, and why you felt comfortable at that time?
Right. Well, I didn't feel comfortable at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, this is
Yes.
a risk per day, as we always say. But I joined Accenture in those days, Arthur Andersen, in 1987. And you have to imagine in those days, there was some rumor of someone somewhere in the building being gay. That was about it. There was no website with pride flags. But after 2 weeks, they said to me, we're going to organize an office party. Are you coming? I said, yes, if there's a party, I'm coming. But then I had to ask myself, am I going to bring my partner to the office party and effectively come out? And I was thinking about it, going back and forth, as you do with those things. And at the end of the day, I said, what the heck, I'm going to do it. And it was fine, and everything was smooth from there. So I didn't really have a setback, and then you sort of, why would you do that? And I think ultimately, if you are at work and you're hiding a part of yourself, whether that's your sexuality, your religion, or something else in your family, you're going to be distracted, and you cannot be your best self. And work is about work, I always say. You want to perform.
Did you find, Sander, that you became a role model for others to actually be able to share their own experience?
I would say everybody is a role model at all levels. We're all role models. So yes, I was a bit of a role model, but frankly, I wasn't a great role model, to be honest, initially. Yeah. Because I was out and I did my thing, but I never really talked much about LGBTQ matters or whatever. But at some point in time in my career, later in my career, I said, now I should not be only out, but I should also be more out there. Okay. Meaning showing up, getting a bit more involved, and step it up, because younger people in every organization are looking at their leaders, and they're looking for role models. Yeah.
How have attitudes changed, do you think, since then? And are you happy with the progress?
Many things have changed for the good. Again, I just said, if you go on a website today, and that's what people do, and I'm at Randstad, so we're a human services business, so people are looking for a job. They want to see people like themselves. Yes. Whatever, of all walks of life, if you will. And if you go today on a website of any company, you'll see the Pride ERG, you'll see people like yourself, you'll see things about diversity, inclusion, belonging. And that's not just on the website, it's also happening in practice. So I think we have made tons of progress by raising the subject in general of belonging, gender, people with disability, LGBTQ+, people of color. In Randstad in North America, we have a big Latin community. So we've raised the subject to the executive level, and it's right to be there because talent is scarce. And if you want to have the best people in your company, you need to look everywhere and not just in one place.
Sander, it may seem an obvious question, but why is it so important for businesses to advocate for LGBTQ inclusivity?
Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do. That is sort of number 1, 2, and 3. LGBTQ+ rights are human rights. But that's not the only reason. At Randstad, we say diversity and inclusion is a business imperative. And why is it a business imperative? Our clients are diverse. They expect us to be diverse. Diverse teams come up with better ideas. There's so much research proving that And intuitively, you know, if you're with 5 the same people, they come with the same ideas. And 5 different people, you get different ideas. Simple. And then last but not least, it's back to the best talent in the company. If you want the best talent in your company, you have to look in all places. So it is a business imperative. It's not just for fun or charity or to do a good thing. No, it's good for business and good for people.
What advice, Sander, did you have for companies looking to become more inclusive?
I would say there are 3 points of advice that I would have. First of all, it's the tone from the top. The leader or the leaders of the company, they need to be out there, they need to be advocating, they need to show up, they need to do the right things, they need to promote the right people, the tone and actions from the top, that's one. Then number 2 is, and I call that the technicalities, that is the policies, the benefits. Are the benefits really the same for same-sex partners in all your countries? And you have to work on that. So there's effectively a big spreadsheet with boxes and you need to tick them all green. Number 3 is the ERGs, the employee resource groups. They are really important to get the grassroots activated, to keep the management and most of the time the local management and leadership sharp and say, okay, bring the subjects to the table. So the tone from the top and the tone from the grassroots come together. And those are really, those ERGs, they are super important.
It does seem surprising, though, that we are having to have these type of conversations in 2022. But of course, with same-sex relationships illegal in some countries, how can multinational corporations navigate advocating for inclusivity?
Right. Well, first, we have our values in Randstad, are our values in Randstad. And they are our values in Asia, they are our values in North America, they are our values in Latin America and Europe. So within the company, wherever you are in the world, our values are what they are, and that's how we behave. That's number 1 that companies, multinational companies, should be doing. And then I would say multinational companies, through their leadership locally, but also through their ERGs, should engage locally. Whether that's participating in a Pride, whether it's participating in a women's network, whether it is a CEO panel on diversity and inclusion. They need to be out there, and I'm encouraging my leaders in Randstad to make sure that they get out there on these topics. So engagement at all levels is very important.
And how important is representation?
Representation as in the company, yeah, I mean, that is critical, because again, people are looking for people like themselves. Yeah. People are looking, am I making the career that I want to make? Do I get equal opportunities here? At the promotion process at the end of the year, does everybody get a fair shot? That is important, and actually, if you want to make progress, you need to overrepresent in some processes.
Sander, do you feel a sense of frustration, even a little bit of anger or disappointment that you have to talk about your sexuality?
No, I don't feel frustration at all. It's not, let's say, it's not something I talk about every day with everybody. But this is the thing. That's why I always say, bring your story to work, because it's not like, listen, I have to tell you something. No, you go to the coffee machine and you have a chat and you say, you know, me and my husband were seeing a movie this weekend. Yeah. Okay, people get it. Yeah. So bring your story to work and talk about it casually. And it's not something special. It's part of who you are, but it's not everything of who you are.
Yeah, of course. And you serve on the board for Out and Equal, an organization working on LGBTQ workplace equality. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great organization. And what they do is they do thought leadership, share best practices, but they also bring together all these ERGs from all the companies around the world. So every year there's a big conference, 2,500 people. People from the United States, from Europe, from big companies, small companies. They share experiences. And the most important thing that Out and Equal does is inspire those 2,500 people to go back to their companies and say, listen, I learned a few things here. We should talk about a few things and get going on a few things. And that is, I mean, that's the fun and result of great networking.
And what impact do you think it's had so far?
Oh, it has, let's say, the progress is always frustrating. But every now and then you need to allow yourself to look back 5 or 10 or 15 years. And then you see, well, we came a long way. But then you look forward and then you look at the work we still need to do. And then you start to also look at some of the backlash that is coming left and right, whether it is in all countries, even in the United States.
Why do you think there is that backlash now?
I don't know why, because for me it's something that's so remote from me, because why wouldn't you treat people as people?
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter, there is backlash, and that should stimulate us to engage even more, be more proactive, and be more out there with the messages. And this is back to the role models, is ultimately when people meet people, if you have never met a trans person, and you meet a trans person, the conclusion is, yeah, that is also a normal person who drinks Coca-Cola. Yeah, you understand what I mean? So being out there and meeting people, engaging, I think is extremely important.
And you've been engaging here at the World Economic Forum in Davos. What has been the response here?
The response here is good. We had a good crowd yesterday at our panel. We had another panel with GLAAD just now. Also, I would say at the World Economic Forum, we've come a long way, because we started this journey 7, 8, 9 years ago when there was nothing about LGBTQ on the agenda. Now we're in the main building with the forum. We're having this conversation, which is sort of another milestone, I would say. So that's my little contribution to pushing the agenda here a little bit. So the response is good, and it's really important, again, also to be here, because if you say Davos, people listen, and they tune in.
Yeah. What more progress would you like to see here, let's say, Sander? Where would you like it to go?
We need to keep at it. I think we had a very interesting discussion this morning about how to be an inclusive leader, and a very good dialogue with 5 or 6 CEOs. And I learned a few things there, and they learned a few things from me, maybe. And this is the kind of dialogue that we need to keep. And this is the tone of the top, the grassroots, the technicalities, we need to keep sharing best practices and keep progressing the agenda and push back on backlash.
You've spoken on a panel, as you said, moderated by GLAAD CEO Sarah Kate Ellis, who I talked to here as well. What is the significance of having an LGBTQ plus focus session in the Congress Center?
Well, that is in and by itself important, because if you're part of what happens in the Congress Center, you're part of the real thing, if you will. So there is some symbolism there. Having the conversation is important, but it's also, the platform and the podium that we get there. And a few years ago, we launched an alliance with the WEF and a group of companies to promote and implement the UN standards for LGBTQ. And we now have a whole range of companies joining in. So, if you're here, the convening power of Davos and the World Economic Forum and the level of people that you have here, that's unparalleled. And you can make, in 5 minutes, you can make the progress that you cannot make by talking to 20 people in an organization.
How important is the work of GLAAD and what Sarah Kate Ellis does?
Extremely important. We need organizations such as GLAAD to push us, to push the agenda, to be on top of what's happening in the world, especially these days, to know what's going on, to rally the troops, if you will, to talk to the people on Capitol Hill and other politicians in the world. It is very important that we have those advocacy groups, because without them, who would do it? Because it's a very important agenda, but every company and organization needs a little push at times also, so that's good.
What is your message, Sander, to those who feel that they don't feel they can come out to their bosses, their organizations, they feel marginalized?
I had one of those conversations yesterday with a young man after our panel. And he said, how can I make sure not to be discriminated against or marginalized after I come out? Or what can organizations do? I said, well, organizations can do a lot, but ultimately you have to jump. You have to take that risk. And you go at your own pace, with one person or a few persons. And I said to him, you know, I'm confident, A, you can do it, but B, in 99 out of 100 cases, things will be fine. If you really find out that you're in an organization that doesn't create the environment where you feel belonging, I think you should get out of there. You're a talented person. There are jobs to be had. Come to Randstad and we'll get you one. But so ultimately, let's say, individuals need to get over the hump, and every time you get over the hump, you know, that feels not too bad, and then the next hump and the next hump, and then sort of then it becomes part of life, and it's fine.
And how optimistic are you, Sander, that we'll be in a world that we don't have to have these kind of conversations?
I have to be optimistic. I am optimistic, but that world is a long way away.
Really?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because if you look at the number of people in the workplace that work in inclusive environments, now we have the Fortune 500 and 90% out of them doing a good job. And then you have the G2000 and maybe 90% of those are doing a good job. But then there are hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of organizations where the atmosphere is not yet what it could or should be. So so we're only at the beginning of a long journey, but you know, belonging for all, that's the vision, and that's the sort of the North Star that we need to keep following.
Companies are focusing on DEI. Are you happy with the progress that they're making?
We had that discussion this morning with 5 CEOs, and there was a sense of frustration. There was one of the leaders of a professional services firm. They nudged up every year 1% the number of female senior executives. And that's about the pace you can, and that's already hard work. So the progress is at times frustrating, but that's why I just said we need to allow ourselves every now and then. Okay, 10 years ago, it was a lot worse. So this is an agenda that moves at snail pace, but you need to keep at it. Day in, day out, year in, year out, with all the things that you can do, new things, things that have proven to work, the things that have proven not to work, you should forget about. This is a long-term journey.
Sander, thank you so much for joining me today on Equity and Opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.